Okay. So what we're going to do now is we're going to draw a tree diagram for flipping a coin. And it's actually not that hard. So we start the tree diagram with a dot, of course. And we have two options, either lands on heads or lands on tails. Okay. Let's do another tree diagram. We're going to flip a coin 3 times. So we're going to flip it once, twice, or 3 times. And I want to list all the possible outcomes. So how many different ways? So what we have is, pause it, try it yourself. I'm going to go ahead and give the answer. It's going to be heads or tails. That's the first flip. Now for the second flip, if we got heads, we could still land on heads or tails. And it could still land on heads or tails. And then it could still land on heads or tails. Heads or tails. Heads or tails. Heads or tails. And we know this tree diagram is right because if I took a look, if I said, what does this tip represent of the tree? So we flipped heads, then we flipped tails, and then we flipped tails. So this would be flipping heads, then tails, and then tails, in that order. So how many outcomes do we have in total? We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So there's a total of 8 different ways, or 8 different results. To flip a coin 3 times. Okay. Now, let's change it up. What we're going to do, I went out of focus there. We're going to flip 3 coins simultaneously. Maybe I spelled it correctly. We're going to flip 3 coins simultaneously. So we'll say that we flipped a, we'll say it was a nickel, a quarter, and a loonie. And we want to know what the tree diagram looks like. So pause the video, try to draw the tree diagram here. Most people actually draw it wrong. Okay, I'm going to show you the wrong one now. So the wrong one would be, so we can have nickel, quarter, loonie, and this would be heads, tails, heads, tails, heads, tails. And this is wrong. This is incorrect. This is wrong. Now, how do we know this is wrong? So there's 2 ways to tell this is wrong. So when we tell it's wrong is if we look at a tip, it says, okay, the quarter had landed on heads. That doesn't really tell us what the other coins did at all. So it didn't really do that. So first of all, each tip of the branch here does not describe what happened fully. And the other problem here is that we don't have, like, so here, yes, this is a choice. If we flip the nickel, it's heads or tails. But we're not choosing between flipping the nickel, the quarter, or the loonie. We're going to be flipping all 3. So if I want to change the question to make this tree diagram right, if the question was, pick one of these 3 coins and flip it once, then that would be the correct diagram for picking one of those 3 coins and flipping it once, and there would be 6 options. But that's not what we have here. What we have is, so the real tree diagram is, first, we have the nickel, we're going to flip the nickel, and the nickel could be on heads or the nickel could be on tails. And then we're going to flip the quarter, and the quarter could be on heads or the quarter could land on tails. And then the loonie can land on heads or tails. The loonie can land on heads or tails. The loonie can land on heads or tails. And the loonie can land on heads or tails. And what we see is, so now if we look at the end of one of these guys, okay, so what happened here? The nickel landed on tails, the quarter landed on heads, and the loonie landed on heads. So there's a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's 8 ways. And in fact, it's pretty much the same way as when we had one coin 3 times. So tree diagrams don't have to be in any order. It's the choices. It's a choice, choice, choice. Done, done, done. And there's 8 ways of doing it. Now let's say I asked you, so that was kind of an example 8, so we'll say this is an example 9. Flip a coin 3 times. How many ways to get at least one tail? Now, at least, of course, is the danger word. So, one way of doing it is we could draw the tree diagram. So the tree diagram is going to be, for flipping a coin 3 times, we could draw the tree diagram. What we could say is, okay, so this has at least a tail, and this one at least has a tail, and this one has at least a tail. This one only has one, but it's still at least one. This one, this one, this one, oh, and this one does not. And we can add it up, and there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. There's 7 ways to get at least one tail. Now, the other way of solving the problem, so that was kind of the direct way of doing it. The other way of doing it would have been to solve it indirectly. And indirect, in case you forget, is total minus the bad. So if you flip 3 coins, the total number of ways is 8. Now the bad ways, in order to not get at least one tail, the coin has to land on heads at all 3 times. And there's only one way for it to land on heads all 3 times. So it'd be 8 minus 1, and that would be 7. Directly, indirectly, 2 ways to get the answer.